What if I told you the real ending of Spider-Man, Brand New Day, doesn't happen in the final battle? It happens after the credits because that one mysterious scene could secretly reveal Peter Parker's future across the entire multiverse saga. And if that's true, Spider-Man may already be on the path toward Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. So let's break down exactly what happened and why this ending could be far more important than most people realize. First of all, if your voice sounds a little different today, forgive me. Watching this movie in a packed theater had me screaming way more than I should have. And honestly, if a Spider-Man movie doesn't leave your throat hurting and your emotions destroyed, did you even watch a Spider-Man movie? Now here's the biggest surprise. If you're expecting another movie that feels like the home trilogy, forget it. This is a completely different flavor of Spider-Man. It's darker, more grounded, more emotional, and much more personal. The action absolutely delivers, but the heart of this movie is Peter Parker himself. There are multiple scenes that genuinely hit hard, and for a lot of fans, don't be surprised if a few moments leave you tearing up. The twists aren't there just for shock value. Every major turn pushes Peter further as a character, and by the end, you truly feel like the kid we've been watching for years has finally become a man. That's probably the film's greatest achievement. Spider-Man has always been the easiest superhero to relate to. Almost everyone can see a piece of themselves in Peter Parker, and this movie strengthens that connection more than ever before. So if you've wanted a Spider-Man story that's more comic book accurate, more emotional, and far more grounded, this is absolutely worth watching. Now let's talk about why this movie feels so different. A huge part of that credit goes to director Destin Daniel Cretton. His vision completely changes the tone of this franchise. The closest comparison I can make is The Amazing Spider-Man. The cinematography, the web swinging, the grounded storytelling, it all carries that same immersive feeling, but it's evolved even further. Instead of trying to copy previous MCU Spider-Man films, this movie fully embraces Spider-Man's comic roots, because Spider-Man isn't supposed to be saving the universe every single day. He's the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, stopping small crimes, helping ordinary people, protecting his own city, connecting with everyday citizens. And for the first time in a long while, this movie truly embraces that identity. Reading those moments in a comic book is one thing. Making them work in live action is much harder, but somehow they pull it off beautifully. Another huge surprise is the practical web swinging. Many fans believed practical swinging simply wouldn't work in modern Spider-Man movies. This film completely proves the opposite. The movement feels real. The camera follows Peter from angles that make you feel like you're flying right behind him through New York. On the biggest screen possible, those sequences are genuinely breathtaking. Honestly, even beyond the performances, you start appreciating how confidently this movie is directed. And now it makes complete sense why Marvel trusted Destin with much bigger projects, because within a single movie, he balances emotion, action, philosophy, and character growth incredibly well. But here's where the story becomes really interesting. At the end of No Way Home, the entire world forgot Peter Parker, his closest friends, the people he loved, everyone. Now, 4 years later, Peter is living a completely isolated life. No real family, no close friends, nothing. Spider-Man has become almost his entire identity, and as Peter spends more and more time living only as Spider-Man, something inside him slowly begins to change. Not just emotionally, physically, psychologically. Almost like the spider DNA itself is beginning to take over. At exactly the same time, a terrifying new telepathic villain enters the picture. A villain capable of manipulating other people's minds. For someone who spent years living completely alone, the possibility of reconnecting with MJ becomes almost impossible to ignore. That emotional conflict becomes one of the movie's strongest driving forces. Peter isn't just fighting another villain, he's fighting loneliness, identity, temptation, and the terrifying changes happening inside his own body. And that's what makes this story feel so different from previous Spider-Man films, because this isn't just another superhero adventure, it's Peter Parker's most personal battle yet. But the biggest reason this movie works is Tom Holland. For years, we've watched Peter Parker grow from an awkward teenager into a superhero. This is the first movie where it genuinely feels like he's no longer just a kid trying to survive. He's finally becoming the Spider-Man he's meant to be. There's a maturity in his performance that wasn't there before. You can literally feel the weight he's carrying in every scene. His loneliness, his responsibility, his fear, his hope, it's all there. And what impressed me most is that the movie isn't interested in showing Peter as the funny kid from high school anymore. It wants you to understand what it actually costs to be Spider-Man. Because from the outside, say, having spider powers looks incredible. Swinging through New York, stopping criminals, saving people. It sounds like the dream every kid grows up wanting, but this movie constantly reminds you being Spider-Man is also a curse. The film spends most of its runtime from Peter's point of view. You don't just watch him, you experience everything with him. There are several moments where the mask says more than dialogue ever could. Just the way his eyes move through the lenses tells you exactly what Peter is feeling. That's incredibly difficult to pull off, yet Tom Holland absolutely nails it. There were multiple emotional scenes where you genuinely forget you're watching a superhero movie. You're simply watching a young man trying to survive a life that keeps taking everything away from him. That's why this version of Peter feels more relatable than ever. He's still dealing with powers he never asked for, but still struggling with isolation, still watching the people he loves move on without him, and still trying to convince himself that doing the right thing is worth the pain. Honestly, there are moments where you almost want to step into the screen and tell Peter, you're not alone anymore. That's how emotionally invested this movie makes you. Another thing I loved? The movie finally lets emotional moments breathe. Modern Marvel films often interrupt serious scenes with jokes. Here, they don't. When something emotional happens, the film actually allows you to sit with that emotion before moving on. That makes every major scene hit much harder. And yes, there's still humor, but it feels natural instead of forced. Now let's talk about the supporting cast. Even though Peter is clearly the heart of this movie, everyone around him has a purpose. MJ and Ned don't get a massive amount of screen time. In fact, their combined presence is surprisingly limited, but every single scene they're in matters. Their relationship with Peter reminds you exactly what he's lost. Without them, Peter's emotional journey wouldn't hit nearly as hard. Then comes one of my favorite surprises, Spider-Man and Punisher. I honestly wasn't sure this pairing would work. Turns out, their chemistry is fantastic. They constantly disagree, they argue, they challenge each other's beliefs. Yet underneath all that conflict, there's an unexpected level of respect. It almost feels like watching two brothers who refuse to admit they care about each other. Every conversation between them adds something new to both characters. If Marvel ever made an entire Spider-Man and Punisher movie after this, I'd watch it immediately. Their dynamic is easily one of the highlights of the film. MJ also gets a very important transformation sequence. I'm obviously not going to spoil it here, but it's handled far better than I expected. It echoes certain emotional beats from No Way Home while still feeling completely fresh. Another standout performance comes from Sadie Sink. I won't reveal who she's playing because that's something you should experience yourself. But once the second half begins, she absolutely holds her own alongside Tom Holland. Now, I understand why Marvel kept her role such a huge secret. Could her reveal have been handled with a little more impact? Maybe. But her performance itself is excellent. She has serious long-term MCU potential. Bruce Banner also makes a meaningful appearance. His screen time isn't huge, but every scene pushes Peter's journey forward. Nothing feels wasted. Performance-wise, I honestly don't think anyone disappoints. Every actor understands exactly what kind of movie this is trying to be. Now let's talk about the action. If you're expecting non-stop fights every 10 minutes, adjust your expectations. This movie is much more character-driven. I'd honestly split it around 60% emotion and 40% action. But here's the important part. Every action sequence actually tells a story. The fights aren't there just because the movie needs explosions. Every battle reflects Peter's emotional state. Every punch has meaning. Every victory comes with a cost. And that's exactly why the action feels so satisfying. Now let's talk about what most people came for, the action. And trust me, when this movie decides to go all in, it absolutely delivers. The opening tank sequence immediately sets the tone. It's intense, fast, and beautifully choreographed. You can instantly feel the influence of Jackie Chan's stunt team because every movement feels physical instead of overly CGI heavy. Then comes one of the biggest crowd-pleasing moments, Spider-Man versus Hulk. I'll be honest, I really wish Sony hadn't shown so much of this fight in the trailers. Seeing it completely fresh inside the theater would have been an unforgettable experience. Even so, the fight is still incredibly entertaining, but the real surprise for me was Spider-Man versus Hand. The choreography almost feels like an old-school martial arts film. It's not just people throwing punches. Every move pushes the story forward. That's something I loved throughout the entire movie. None of the action exists just to look cool. Every fight reveals something about the characters. Every battle changes someone emotionally. Even the final confrontation isn't driven by spectacle alone. It's driven by emotion, and that's exactly why it lands. Some villains like Scorpion, Boomerang, Tarantula, and Ramrod definitely could have had a little more screen time. Their action scenes are fun, but I honestly wanted more from them. Still, the emotional payoff surrounding every major character makes up for it. Whether it's Spider-Man, Punisher, MJ, Bruce Banner, or Sadie Sink's mysterious character, everyone is carrying emotional baggage beneath the surface. The movie keeps returning to one central idea. Every person has something dangerous hidden inside them. Anger, pain, loneliness, fear. The question isn't whether those emotions exist, it's whether you control them or they control you. That becomes one of the film's strongest philosophical themes. Instead of simply telling another superhero story, the movie quietly asks something much bigger. How do you stop your inner monster from becoming who you are? That's why several emotional conversations stay with you long after the credits roll. When you leave the theater, you're not only thinking about Spider-Man, you're thinking about yourself, your own struggles, your own responsibilities, your own choices. That's something previous MCU Spider-Man films rarely attempted. Another huge strength, the humor. Yes, there are funny moments, but they never destroy emotional scenes. Instead, the comedy comes naturally from the characters themselves. Punisher was probably my biggest surprise. Normally, he's one of Marvel's darkest characters. Yet somehow, without changing who he is, the movie finds small moments of dry humor that actually work. His arguments with Spider-Man are hilarious. They're constantly disagreeing about how heroes should operate. Spider-Man tries to save everyone. Punisher believes some people simply can't be saved. Watching those two personalities collide creates some genuinely great dialogue. Comic book fans are going to have an amazing time spotting references. There are multiple scenes recreated almost panel for panel from classic Spider-Man comics. Not just visually, even certain poses, camera angles, and emotional beats feel ripped straight from the pages. It never feels forced. It feels like a genuine love letter to longtime Spider-Man readers. Now let's talk about the presentation. The music is outstanding. Several emotional moments become unforgettable because of the score. Instead of trying to overpower scenes, the soundtrack quietly amplifies them. The cinematography is also a massive step forward. Compared to the home trilogy, everything looks more mature. The colors are deeper. The lighting feels more cinematic. New York itself almost becomes another character. Every swing through the city feels larger than life. Every rooftop conversation feels isolated. Even the visual tone reflects Peter's emotional journey. Now, the CGI. This is probably the movie's biggest technical weakness. Some sequences look absolutely incredible, especially during the web swinging. Spider-Man's suit moves naturally with the wind in ways we haven't really seen before. It looks fantastic. But other scenes, especially a few green screen moments, look noticeably unfinished. Some lighting doesn't match. A handful of visual effects feel rushed. They're never bad enough to ruin the movie, but you definitely notice them. If those shots had received a little more polish, the visual presentation would have been nearly perfect. Still, the practical effects and cinematography easily outweigh those flaws. By this point, it's clear this isn't trying to be the biggest Spider-Man movie, it's trying to be the most personal one. And honestly, that's exactly what makes it stand out. So after everything this movie gets right, where does it actually stumble? Let's start with the pacing. The runtime sits at nearly 2.5 hours. Most of the emotional scenes absolutely deserve the time they get because they're the reason you become attached to Peter. But there are a handful of moments that simply linger a little too long. Instead of moving the story forward, the movie occasionally pauses just a bit longer than necessary. A few conversations could have been trimmed by 2 or 3 minutes without losing any emotional impact. That slower pacing won't bother everyone. If you're completely invested in Peter's journey, you'll probably never notice it. But if you're watching with friends or expecting constant action, there's a good chance you'll feel the runtime during the middle section. Another small disappointment, some of the biggest surprises are easier to predict than I expected. The trailers reveal more than they should have. Several action moments lose that first-time shock because we've already seen pieces of them in the marketing. And while there are still a few nice surprises, don't expect endless plot twists. This movie isn't trying to constantly surprise you, it's trying to make you care. Now let's talk about the villain. Without spoiling anything, I actually think the antagonist works really well. Their motivations make sense, their powers create unique challenges, and once Peter fully embraces his organic web abilities, the final conflict becomes much more interesting than a simple hero versus villain fight. The emotional conflict matters just as much as the physical one. That's exactly how Spider-Man stories should feel. Now, the post-credit scene. Marvel fans should absolutely stay until the very end. There's only one post-credit scene this time. Was it mind-blowing? Not really. I honestly think Marvel could have done something much bigger. But it clearly plants the foundation for what's coming next. Whether it's Avengers, Doomsday, Secret Wars, or another Spider-Man adventure, this ending is quietly setting bigger things into motion. And after thinking about it for a while, I actually appreciate what they were trying to do. Instead of ending with cheap fan service, they leave you with questions. Questions that will probably shape Spider-Man's future across the multiverse saga. Now, for my final thoughts, this isn't the biggest Spider-Man movie, it isn't the funniest, it doesn't have the craziest multiverse cameos. What it does have is the strongest emotional core we've seen from Tom Holland's Spider-Man. For the first time, Peter Parker truly feels like an adult carrying impossible responsibilities. Destin Daniel Cretton gives the franchise a fresh visual identity. Tom Holland delivers one of his best performances. The supporting cast shines, the action feels meaningful, the emotional moments stay with you. The comic book accuracy is fantastic. The practical web swinging is incredible. Yes, the CGI is inconsistent. Yes, the pacing slows down in places. And yes, I wanted a stronger post-credit payoff. But none of those issues take away from what this movie ultimately achieves. It reminds us why Spider-Man has always been Marvel's most relatable hero. Not because he's the strongest, not because he saves the world, but because no matter how much life breaks him, he always gets back up. If you're a lifelong Spider-Man fan, this movie is absolutely worth watching. And even if you're just a casual Marvel fan, there's a very good chance you'll walk out of the theater connecting with Peter Parker more than ever before. Now, I want to hear your theory. What do you think Marvel is really setting up after that ending? Did the post-credit scene hint at Avengers, Doomsday, Secret Wars, or something completely different? Drop your theory in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep Marvel analysis, hidden details, and dark fan theories, make sure you're subscribed. Until next time, keep looking beyond the obvious, because Marvel's biggest secrets are usually hiding in plain sight.